by fire. That camp was located outside the village of Moria, also near Mytilene, but more inland. It was visited on April 16th, 2016. This new area, this new reception and identification center, is also often referred to as Moria 2.0 by the Greeks who live here, and thousands of refugees go through this camp. Many of the refugees are cared for by Caritas Hellas, or Greece, Internationale since 1952. And in a recent press release, Caritas Hellas tells us that the purpose of their organization is to create and implement action and programs of humanitarian and philanthropic, develop a spirit of solidarity within culture. In 2019 and 2020, through both of those years, Caritas Hellas served 18,000 people on the island of Lesbos, over 5,000 on the island of Chios, and 3,700 on the island of Samos. And Caritas Hellas has been operating on the island of Lesbos since November 2015, specifically responding to the ongoing needs of refugees. In April of 2020, it began responding in earnest to increased health concerns due to the COVID-19 pandemic. A new type of interpretation services on the island to facilitate accessibility of the migrants to primary health care. And following the devastating fire in Moria, in September 2020, Caritas Hellas responded promptly and effectively in cooperation with local, national, and international stakeholders, directly providing non-food items, and began a reception and identification center that we are now seeing. Our Holy Father now driving up to the camp and getting out of the car. The Holy Father himself made a donation in May of 2020. Delegation, including Cardinal Koreyevsky, who's the papal almoner, visited Moria, the camp that burnt down. And the Holy Father himself donated €100,000 to Caritas Hellas. We now hear those who are here greeting him.
Hello. How are you? Welcome here. Welcome.
Our Holy Father now making his way toward the facility. Several testimonies during this visit here. About 200 refugees are on hand to welcome the Holy Father. When our Holy Father came in April of 2020, he was accompanied by His Holiness Bartholomew, the Ecumenical Patriarch of Constantinople, as well as by His Beatitude Hieronymus, the Archbishop of Athens, the Greek Orthodox Archbishop of Athens and all Greece. And together they made a joint statement saying they wanted to demonstrate their profound concern for the tragic situation of numerous refugees, migrants, and asylum seekers who have come to Europe. Conflict, and in many cases, daily threats to their survival. Let's keep this in mind as we see the very people that these words describe. These three leaders said world opinion cannot ignore the colossal humanitarian crisis created by the spread of violence and armed conflict, the persecution and displacement of religious and ethnic minorities, and the uprooting of families from their homes. In violation of their human dignity and their fundamental human rights, the tragedy of forced migration, these three leaders said, and displacement affects millions and is fundamentally a crisis of humanity, calling for compassion, generosity, and an immediate practical commitment of resources. From Lesbos, we appeal to the international community to respond with courage in facing this massive humanitarian crisis and its underlying causes, through diplomatic, political, and charitable initiatives, and through cooperative efforts both in the Middle East and in Europe. Going back to the joint statement, respective churches, we are one in our desire for peace and in our readiness to promote the resolution of conflicts through dialogue and reconciliation, while acknowledging the efforts already being made to provide help and care to refugees, migrants, upon all political leaders to employ every means to ensure that individuals and communities, including Christians, remain in their homelands and enjoy the fundamental right to live in peace and security.
Hello. Good morning.
Our Holy Father continues to greet migrants and refugees here on the island of Lesbos. Here in Greece. He also addressed the issue of migration on the island of Cyprus while he was there on Thursday and Friday. And it was announced that the Holy Father, now conversing with this young boy, asked him what his name is. Negotiations are underway to bring, in the end, about 50 people in various stages from Cyprus to Italy. That was announced the other day when our Holy Father took place in an ecumenical prayer service with migrants there. This also greeting our Holy Father.
Hello. Hello.
Hieronymus years ago together that Europe today faces one of its most serious humanitarian crises since the end of the Second World War. To meet this grave challenge, we appeal to all followers of Christ to be mindful of the Lord's words on which we will one day be judged. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. And you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me. Truly, truly, I say to you, inasmuch as you did it to one of the least of these, my brethren, you did it for me.
Bonne arrivée. Bonne arrivée. Je viens de la Côte d'Ivoire. Je viens de la Côte d'Ivoire.
This young man from the Ivory Coast.
Pardonnez. Pardonnez, aidez-moi. 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 Aidez-moi.
So many others awaiting to be able to meet the Holy Father. Caressing children here. Many mothers have their children with them.
Hello, Papa.
And the 3 leaders who visited here 5 years ago, on their part, said that in obedience to the will of our Lord Jesus Christ, we firmly and wholeheartedly resolve to intensify our efforts to promote the full unity of all Christians. We reaffirm our conviction that reconciliation among Christians involves promoting social justice within and among all peoples. Again, our Holy Father stopping, asking the name of this young man here, young boy. And Francis, along with his Beatitude Bartholomew, our part towards giving migrants, refugees, and asylum seekers a humane reception in Europe. By defending the fundamental human rights of refugees, asylum seekers, and migrants, and the many marginalized people in our societies, we aim to fulfill the Church's mission of service to the world.
I want to say all people Arab, all rejection. This is not
A woman here asking our Holy Father, the question was in English, providing an answer for her through his interpreter.
I want.
He wants to.
The Holy Father is saying that he is trying to help. She's from and our Holy Father extending his hand over her. Our Holy Father touching firsthand, hearing firsthand the stories of these migrants who represent so many others forced to flee from their homelands. And now the Holy Father entering the camp itself. well. But these temporary shelters that have been set up for them, the joint declaration of Hieronymus, Francis, and Bartholomew concludes our meeting today, that was on April 16th, 2016, is meant to help bring courage and hope to those seeking refuge and to all those who welcome and assist them. We urge the international community to make the protection of human lives a priority, and at every level to support inclusive policies which extend to all religious. The terrible situation of all those affected by the present humanitarian crisis, including so many of our Christian brothers and sisters, calls for our constant prayer. So for those of you who may be able to help when it may not be possible to help physically or concretely or monetarily, we've just heard our prayer. Our prayer is a way that we can all help. Our Holy Father continuing to make his way among the people here who are gathered awaiting his playing here a little bit with the little boy. A father presenting his 1-year-old baby. We see the conditions of this camp as we see the Holy Father walking along.
Good morning, good morning.
Hello, Father. Hello.
One of the statistics available regarding the former camp in which refugees and migrants were welcomed, the one that burned down in September 2020, is that one day before the fire, 12,600 people were hosted there, or 2,700. So when we hear the Holy Father talking about a humanitarian crisis, these numbers themselves tell us that a drop of migrants has been taking place at a rate far greater than facilities and organization can accommodate them.
Πάνω λίγο πίσω.
One of the areas that this camp seeks to provide is helping unaccompanied children and teenagers, trying to help relocate these children and teenagers is a priority. And European and international agencies have been helping Greek authorities to try to create other reception and identification centers to streamline processes and to enhance these camps' capacity. The establishment of this new center was a priority for the Greek authorities working together. As we see, we have some technical difficulties going on. Our Holy Father, a small a bit of time in which he has been greeting migrants and refugees. This is his second day visiting Greece, and he has returned to Lesbos, which he visited in April 2016. He entered through the east gate, and now we see mobile units making up this camp. Our Holy Father now making his way by car to the place where the meeting, 200 people here.
Κυρίας Κατερίνας Σακελαροπούλου και της αυτή αγιότητας του Πάπα Φραγκίσκου.
Sounds like introductions being made. And here we see our Holy Father being greeted by two children along with the President of the Republic, Katerina Sakelaropoulou, whom we should be hearing from. Now we see both Pope Francis and Greece's president walking into the tent. Our Holy Father greeting now the entourages here. Our opening hymn here, provided in French. We see his Beatitude Hieronymos, Athens and all Greece there, just in front of the podium. And Pope Francis giving a thumbs up there to the song. Everyone now taking their seats.
Παρακαλώ καθίστε.
And we see at the podium the Archbishop of Naxos, Androstinos and Mykonos,
Εξοχοτάτη κυρία Πρόεδρε της Δημοκρατίας, αγιότατε. Καλώς ήλθατε στην προσωρινή δομή φιλοξενίας της Λέσβου. Αισθανόμαστε ιδιαίτερη τιμή που ο προκαθήμενος της Ρωμαιοκαθολικής Εκκλησίας επέλεξε να επισκεφτεί τον νησί για δεύτερη φορά.
President, Your Holiness, welcome here to Lesbos. We're very happy Catholic Church chose to visit our island for the second time. Your visit here underlines the importance of our island and the importance that this center has in all of Europe. Vice Director of the camp here.
Και εξασφαλίσει την ασφάλειά τους. Νέες δομές έχουν ήδη εγκαινιαστεί στα νησιά της Σάμου, της Λέρου και της Σκό, ενώ έχουν κινηθεί και οι αντίστοιχες διαδικασίες για τη Λέσβο και τη Κύπρο.
People and we try to take care of their safety.
Της δομής που φτιάχτηκε μετά τον εμπρισμό και την καταστροφή του κέντρου της Μόριας. Η Μόρια αποτελεί ένα αρνητικό σύμβολο.
Camps are being constructed. We're in a temporary center.
Παρουσίασα σήμερα εδώ, λίγες μέρες μετά τα εγγένεια των κέντρων στη Λέρο και στην Κο, όπως
Even at Moria, even essential things were lacking. And we've turned that page just a few days before center. We hope that things will begin to improve for the migrants who continue to arrive. But it has also come, the time has come when also they have a task.
Εξοχοτάτη Πρόεδρε της Ελληνικής Δημοκρατίας, κυρία Κατερίνα Σακελαροπούλου, παρακαλούμε, όπως μας κάνετε την τιμή, να προσέλθετε στο βήμα.
And now the Archbishop has welcomed the President of the Republic, Sakelaropoulou.
Αγιότατε, με μεγάλη χαρά και συγκίνηση σας καλωσορίζω σήμερα στη Λέσβο. Για δεύτερη φορά επισκέπτεστε ως προσκυνητής.
Your Holiness, with great joy and emotion, I welcome you today. You are visiting as a pilgrim, a place which was identified with the drama, which is identified with the drama. And is in every way greatly improved compared to that which prevailed during your first visit. The island has welcomed people forced to abandon their homes, pursued by wars, political persecution, extreme poverty in search of a better life in other homelands. Faithful to their humanitarian and their refuge still fresh, the inhabitants of Lesbos have shown understanding and solidarity. In adverse conditions, they fulfilled their moral obligation by being on the front line. The pictures of the grandmothers of native nursing a baby from Syria to give his mother rest went around the world as a symbol of humanity. In all these years, Greece has borne a disproportionate burden regarding the immigration and refugee crisis that is affecting the entire Mediterranean, the sea that unites us. However, addressing it goes beyond national borders and is a shared responsibility of Europe. It is our duty, while respecting the norms of international law and fundamental rights, not to allow the inhumane instrumentalization of immigrants and refugees. Your Holiness, a sharer in their pain, a strong defender of their rights. Your presence is a sign of proximity and warm support for the homeless, the persecuted, those deprived of dreams and expectations. It is the strong message of hope and responsibility that you bring to this entire international community. And the crowd reacting to the words of Madam President here.
Ευχαριστούμε πολύ, κυρία Πρόεδρε. Παρακαλούμε τώρα τον Σεβασμιότατο Αρχιεπίσκοπο Νάξου Τίνου και Αποστολικό
Introduced is the Archbishop of Naxos Andros Tinos and Mykonos, Archbishop Joseph Printensis.
Άγιε Πατέρα, σας καλωσορίζω στη Λέσβο 5 χρόνια μετά την πρώτη σας επίσκεψη. Είμαστε πολύ χαρούμενοι που ήρθατε ξανά.
Welcome you to Lesbo years after your first visit. We are very happy that you have come again in our midst. Your presence here reinforces our small Catholic community on this island as well, that unfortunately is not able to welcome you in our small church so as to pray together, pastor and flock. We thank you for your interest in migrants and refugees, as well as for the local society of Lesbos, which has disproportionately borne the burden of the influx of migrants. In 2016, you praised the people's heart towards migrants who have landed on the coast of our island. We are honored by this recognition and we're grateful to you. Your words comfort the persecuted and strengthen the Good Samaritans on this island and everywhere else where they are welcomed. On Lesbos and other Greek islands, migrants have encountered Christians, Orthodox and Catholics, disposed to support them in their suffering. Caritas Hellas, a charitable organization of our church, from the first moment of the migrant crisis, paid particular attention to their needs and sought to listen to their past, to help them in their present and to sustain them toward their future. Now that many refugees have left this place, to accompany them on their journey of integration into Greek society or on their passage to other countries. Holy Father, your interest sensitizes the authorities and those who are committed an impasse. We thank you for having become the voice of those who have no voice. Yours is the voice of peace. We thank you for having reminded us that in the face of every refugee, we are called to see the face of Christ. Our Holy Father, now greeting Archbishop Joseph Printesis, the Archbishop of the area in which the island of Lesbos is located. We now will be hearing a of Tango Mukalia. He's from the Democratic Republic of Congo. And we see the young man approaching. Christian Tango Mukalaya.
Sa Sainteté, soyez les bienvenus à Lesbos.
Your Holiness, welcome to Lesbos. My name is Christian Tango Mukalia. I am a refugee from the Democratic Republic of Congo. I arrived in Greece, in Lesbos, on November 28th, 2020. I am 30 years old, the father of a family with 3 small children. 2 of them are with me. The other is with his mother. They have not been able to join me in Greece, and I have not heard anything from this. I extend my thanks to you for the paternal solicitude and spirit of humanity that you show to us, your children, migrants and refugees who are currently in Lesbos, in Greece, and throughout the world. May God repay you 100-fold. At the same time, I thank the Greek government and people for their humanitarian spirit with which they welcomed me, giving me peace, shelter, and what is necessary to live on despite difficulties. I cannot forget the Catholic parish I am currently a member of in Mytilene on Lesbos. I've been supported with affection like a child. That's the parish in which I pray to the Lord our God. I have entrusted our difficult moments to God with the strength of prayer and intercession to the Virgin Mary, our Mother, and Mother of the difficulties I have encountered in my life as a refugee. Your Holiness, as a refugee, you know better than I am a pilgrim, an asylum seeker, in search of safe refuge, peace for my family and the education of my 2 children, in the face of persecution and death threats I had in my country of origin. Your Holiness, we had difficulties to come here. They were enormous. I cannot describe everything in these few lines, but I thank God we have overcome them. We pray that my difficulties and those of all my fellow refugees might be overcome, so as to have, as I said before, a safe place in Europe for the future of our families and, above all, for our children who need to be well educated. Our Holy Father now greets Dingo Mukalia, whom we've heard is 30 years old, the father of 3 children, and 2 of whom are with him. But he has heard nothing of his wife or their other child since he left. Introduction of another refugee, Leonardo.
Your Holiness, my name is Len Meacham, and I'm a member of the local Catholic community here on Lesbos. We thank you for your presence here once again. I thank you for standing beside our refugee and migrant brothers and sisters throughout the world. You inspire and of all faiths and none who share your position. Members of our then small Catholic community once stood with other people of this island on its shores to help those who had made the often dangerous journey. One man told us that the hand of friendship held out in welcome meant even more to him than the food and dry clothing we gave him. Later, we were able to Christian asylum seekers, mostly from West Africa, who came to our parish church. I believe we have been blessed by their presence. Our brothers and sisters brought renewed life into our community, and not just in terms of numbers. The strength of their faith and hope, despite their anxious uncertainty about the future, has been an example to us. They've enriched our worship with their joy, enthusiasm, youthful vitality, and eager. Our community has also offered material support to those who seek asylum, to those who've been granted asylum, to those who share our faith, and to those who do not. As a small community, we could have not done this without practical support from friends on the island and financial support from friends elsewhere. We are very grateful to them. We are also grateful to refugees themselves. We would have achieved very little without the help of some outstanding individuals among them. People, women with religious beliefs and without, but all sharing a deep compassion for their brothers and sisters, capable, responsible people with skills and qualities have offered us their with no expectation of personal reward. Your Holiness, asylum seekers come here in the hope of new life, a life worth living. Our friends eventually leave us and this island, continuing their journey. It is my profound hope that a hand of friendship is extended to them and supports them when they reach their final destination, their promised land. My personal experience leads me to a firm belief, the belief that they have as much to offer them. Thank you.
Our Holy Father now greeting Len Meacham, a member of the local Catholic community who works as a volunteer. Brothers and sisters.
Παρακαλούμε την προσοχή σας για τον ύμνο που θα ψάλει η χοροδία μας των Καθολικών Προσφύγων της Μυτιλήνης. Έχουμε αυτή τη στιγμή τη χαρά να δεχτούμε την ευλογία και τον λόγο της αυτού αγιότητος του Πάπα Φραγκίσκου. Όπως προσέλθετε στο βήμα.
And now being introduced is the Holy Father who will now provide his discourse. And we prepare ourselves as well to listen. An issue that is particularly close to his heart.
Cari fratelli e sorelle, grazie per le vostre parole.
Dear brothers and sisters, thank you for your words. I am grateful to you, Madam President, for your presence and your words. Sisters and brothers, I'm here once again to meet you. I'm here to let you know that I am near you, and I say this with my heart. I am here to see your faces. Eyes filled with fear and expectation, eyes that have seen violence and poverty. Eyes streaked by too many. 5 years ago, on this island, the ecumenical patriarch, my dear brother Bartholomew, said something that struck me. Those who are afraid of you have not looked you in the eye. Those who are afraid of you have not seen your faces. Those who fear you have not seen your children. They have forgotten that dignity and freedom transcend fear and division. They have forgotten that migration is not an issue for the Middle East and Northern Africa, for Europe or Greece. It is an issue for the world. A humanitarian crisis that concerns everyone. The pandemic has had a global impact. It has made us realize we are all on the same boat. It has made us experience what it means. It made us understand that the greatest issues must be faced together, because in today's world, piecemeal solutions are inadequate. And yet, while we are working to vaccinate people worldwide, and despite many delays and hesitations, progress is being made in the fight against climate change. All this seems to be terribly absent when it comes to migration. And yet, human lives, real people are at stake. The future of everyone is at stake, and that future will be peaceful only if it is integrated. Because when the poor are rejected, peace is rejected. History teaches lead to disastrous consequences. Indeed, as the Second Vatican Council observed, a firm determination to respect the dignity of other individuals and peoples, along with the deliberate practice of fraternal love, are absolutely necessary for the achievement of peace. And the Holy Father cited Gaudium et Spes. It is an illusion to think it is enough to keep ourselves safe, to defend ourselves from those in greater need who knock at our door. In the future, we will have more and more contact. To turn it to the good, what is needed are not unilateral actions, but wide-ranging policies. Let me repeat, history teaches this lesson, but we have not learned it yet. Stop constantly shifting responsibility. Stop passing off the issue of migration to others as if it mattered to no one and was only a pointless burden to be shouldered by someone else.
Sorelle, fratelli, i vostri volti, i vostri occhi ci chiedono di non girarci dall'altra parte.
Sisters and brothers, your faces and your eyes beg us not to look the other way, not to deny our common humanity, but to make your experiences our own, and to be mindful of your dramatic plight. Elie Wiesel, a witness to the greatest tragedy of the last century, wrote, "It is because I remember our common beginning that I move closer to my fellow human beings. It is the future is as important as my own." On this Sunday, I pray that God might rouse us from our disregard for those who are suffering, to shake us out of an individualism that excludes others, to awaken hearts that are deaf to the needs of our neighbors. I ask every man and woman, all of us, to overcome the paralysis of fear, the indifference that kills, the cynical disregard that nonchalantly condemns to death those on the fringes. That at its root, the dominant mindset that revolves around ourselves, our self-interest, our self-interests, personal and national, everything. 5 years have passed now since I visited this place with my dear brothers Bartholomew and Irenonymous. After all this time, we see that little has changed with regard to the issue of migration in the world. Certainly, many people have committed themselves to the work of welcoming and integrating. I want to thank the many volunteers and all those who at every level, institutional, social, and charitable, have made great efforts to care for individuals I also acknowledge the efforts made to finance and build dignified reception facilities, and I cordially thank the local population for the many sacrifices they have made. I also want to thank the local authorities who are there to welcome and care for and to help these people who come to us, help them progress. Thank you. Thank you for what you do. Yet, with deep regret, we must admit that this country, like others, continues to be hard-pressed, and that in Europe, there are those who persist in treating the problem as a matter that does not concern them. This is tragic. I remember your last words. Europe might do the same. How many conditions exist that are unworthy of human beings? How many hot spots where migrants and refugees live on the borderline conditions without glimpsing solutions on the Yet, respect for individuals and for human rights, especially on this continent, which is constantly promoting them worldwide, should always be upheld, and the dignity of each person ought to come before all else. It's distressing to hear of proposals that common funds be used to build walls as a solution, to build wired fence. Certainly we can appreciate people's fears and insecurities, the difficulties and dangers involved exacerbated by the economic and pandemic crises. Yet problems are not resolved and coexistence improved by building walls, walls that are higher, but by joining forces to care for the possibilities of each person and in respect for the law. Always giving primacy to the inalienable value of the life of every human being. For as Elie Wiesel also said, when human lives are endangered, when human dignity is in jeopardy, national borders become irrelevant. In various societies, security and solidarity, local and universal, and openness are being ideologically contraposed. Rather than bickering over ideas, it would be better to begin with reality, to pause, and broaden the problems of the majority of humanity, of all those peoples who are victims of humanitarian emergencies they did not create, yet have to endure as the latest chapter in a long history of exploitation. It's easy to stir up public opinion by instilling fear of others. Yet why do we fail to speak with equal vehemence about the exploitation of the poor, about self-mentioned but often well-financed, about seldom mentioned but well-financed wars, about about covert deals to traffic in arms, favoring the proliferation of the arms trade. Why don't we hear about this? The remote causes should be attacked, not the poor people who pay the consequences for political propaganda. To remove the root causes, more is needed than merely patching up emergency situations. Coordinated actions are needed. Epical changes have to be approached with a breadth of vision. There are no easy answers to complex problems. Rather, we need to accompany processes from within to overcome making ghettos and fostering a slow and necessary integration, to accept the cultures and traditions of others in a fraternal and responsible way. Above all, if we want to begin anew children, let's find the courage to feel ashamed in their presence. They're innocent, and they are our future. They challenge, what kind of world do you want to give us? Let us not hastily turn away from the shocking pictures of their tiny bodies lying lifeless on the beaches. The Mediterranean, which for millennia has brought different peoples and distant lands together, is now becoming a grim cemetery without tombstones. This great basin of water, the cradle of so many civilizations, now looks like a mirror of death. Let us not make our sea be transformed into a desolate sea of death. Let us not allow this place of encounter to become a theater of conflict. Let us not permit this sea of memories to be transformed into a sea of forgetfulness. Please, of civilization. On the banks of this sea, God became man. Here, Jesus' word resounded, proclaiming that God is the Father and guide of all people. God loves us as His children. He wants us to be brothers and sisters. Instead, He is offended when we despise the men and women created in His image, leaving them at the mercy of the waves in the wash of indifference, justified at times even in the name of supposedly Christian values. On the contrary, faith demands compassion, tells us to hospitality, to that love of strangers which permeated classical culture and later found in Jesus its definitive expression. It found in Jesus its definitive expression, particularly in the parable of the Good Samaritan and the words of chapter 25 of the Gospel of Matthew. This is not religious ideology. It has to do with our concrete Christian roots. Jesus solemnly tells us that He is present in the stranger, in the refugee, in those who are naked and hungry. It is the Christian program to be where Jesus is. For the Christian program, as Pope Benedict has written, is a heart that sees. And I don't want to conclude this message without thanking the Greek people for their welcoming. And many times this welcome has become a problem. Sometimes you don't find ways out for the people so that they can go others. Thank you, brothers and sisters, Greek people, for this generosity. And now let us pray to Our Lady that she might open our eyes to the sufferings of our brothers and sisters. Mary set out in haste to visit her cousin Elizabeth, who was pregnant. How many pregnant mothers, journeying in haste, have found death, even while carrying life in their womb. May the Mother of God help us to have a maternal gaze that regards all human beings as children of God, as sisters and brothers to be welcomed, protected, supported, and to be loved tenderly. May the All-Holy Mother teach us to put the reality of men and women before ideas and ideologies. And to go forth in haste to encounter all who suffer. And now we'll pray together, all together, to the Madonna, the Angelus.
Ave Maria, grazia plena, Dominus tecum, benedicta tui mulieribus et benedictus fructus ventris tui, Iesus. Ecce ancilla Domini. Ave Maria, grazia plena, Dominus tecum, benedicta tui mulieribus et benedictus fructus ventris tui, Iesus.
Santa Maria, Mater Dei, ora pro nobis peccatoribus, nunc et in hora mortis nostris.
Ave Maria, grazia plena, Dominus tecum, benedicta tui mulieribus et benedictus fructus ventris tui, Iesus.
Santa Maria, Mater Dei, ora pro nobis peccatoribus, nunc et in
Ora pro nobis, Santa Dei Genitris. Grazie Tuam quesumus, Domine, mentibus nostris infunde, uciace annunziante, Christi Fili Tui, incarnazione coniovium, per passione meius et crucem, a resurrezione gloriam perducam, per Christum Dominum nostrum. Gloria Patri et Filii et Spiritui Sancto. Gloria Patri et Filio et Spiritui Sancto. Gloria Patri et Filio et Spiritui Sancto. Eterna dona eis Domine. Requiescant in pace. Sit nomen Domini benedictum. Aiutorium nostrum in nomine Domini. Benedicat vos omnipotens Deus, Pater et Filius et Spiritus Sanctus. Amen.
We've paused to recall the incarnation of the Son of God in the prayer of the Angelus here on this island of Lesbos that has been welcoming refugees, mainly from the Middle East and West Africa, as we've heard. Our Holy Father will now visit a few of the refugees.
Έχουμε μαζί μας την Μερσίν και την Τριζίλια, προσφυγόπουλα από το Κονγκό, τα οποία θα ήθελα να σας προσφέρουν ένα μικρό δείγμα της αγάπης τους και της εκτίμησης στο πρόσωπό σας.
There are two young girls now coming forth from Congo who have made something for Pope Francis, and it's an expression of their love. Our Holy Father now taking a look at this notebook in which we can see the writing and drawings, and our Holy Father talking with the girls. Oh, and he's blessing, it looks like what may be a rosary that the one young girl brought. A beautiful moment between these two young refugee girls. gift to the Holy Father, a notebook containing, it looks like, things they've written, and another mother bringing her child up for the Holy Father to give a rosary to. And now that two have come up, it looks like other children are also making their way up so the Holy Father can bless them as well. The faith of these people coming forth, even in actions like this, it means the world. Another young girl coming up receives also a rosary. Second time, as we have heard, that the Holy Father has visited the island of Lesbos in order to bring attention to the plight of immigrants and refugees. Our Holy Father will be staying here for a few minutes. On the program is also planned a short visit where he will be also seeing some of the dwellings that are occupied here by the refugees on their transit, hopefully transit through Greece to other parts of Europe. It's just about noon here in Greece. The Father will be departing shortly from Lesbos and will return to Athens. Of course, he will then go to the Apostolic Nunciature where
Κυρία Πρόεδρε της Δημοκρατίας, εξοχότατε κύριε Υπουργέ, σεβασμιότατη, αξιότιμη προσκεκλημένη, η τελετή μας έχει...
Our Holy Father once again greeting the President of Greece.
Παρακαλώ όπως σηκωθείτε από τις θέσεις σας για την αποχώρηση της αυτού αγιότητος και της εξοχοτάτης κυρίας Προέδρου της Δημοκρατίας.
And once again we hear the choir providing a hymn. Our Holy Father now greeting his Beatitude Hieronymus, also his pectoral image of Our Lady. Hieronymus also accompanied the Holy Father on his trip in April of 2016. That's just in our Holy Father's homily. Not too much has been done in terms of providing better services for the numbers of migrants and refugees that are finding their way to Greek shores. And in his discourse, we also heard him calling on the other nations of Europe to make this a priority rather than to use ideas and ideologies as a way of not making the issue of migration an issue that concerns their countries. Please come back and join us again. Our Holy Father will be celebrating Holy Mass this afternoon. 3:45 Rome time and 4:45 Greek time. This now ends the live broadcast of the reception from the Reception and Identification Center at Lesbos, where our Holy Father has just finished visiting the Center for Migrants. You'll find complete coverage of our Holy Father's 35th Apostolic Journey on our Vatican News web portal, our Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube accounts. And I'd also like to thank once again our media partners who've made this broadcast possible: Catholic TV, Catholic Faith Network, Shalom World Television Networks, EWTN, Sultan Light TV, Shalom TV in India at Madarshan TV, and Luminous Radio. But also to all of you for taking this time to join us. Let's all get involved as much as we can in helping our refugee brothers and sisters find a better life. Christ himself. A blessed Sunday to you all. Laudetur Jesus Christus. Praised be Jesus Christ.
Entrare all'interno